back to Yerushalmi Maasrot. We are up to Perek Shlishi. Halacha. Can't remember what halacha it is. Perek Shlishi Daf Lamed. Anyway, halacha Daled. Daf Lamed Amud Aleph. Now, we said in the Mishnah, if you've got a vine in the courtyard, Rav Tafel said you can climb up and eat a whole cluster, or you can pick a whole cluster rather than climbing. No, you can pick a whole cluster. There's many berries on it. It's not considered siruf, which obligates Masechet. Taman Tanina. We have learnt elsewhere in Trumas, which we learned not that long ago. If you're eating a cluster in a garden which has no kviyas for Masechet, and then you walk while you are eating minagina lachatse from the garden to the courtyard, which is kabbalah Masechet. Rabbi says, carry on eating it in the courtyard without taking Masechet. But be sure, he says, no, don't carry on eating it unless you take Masechet first. So that's what we said in Trumas. Now, what's the reason of Tafel in our Mishnah? Rav Zira, Rav Chaim, Rav Yochanan. We could explain the reason of Rav Tafel. Either Rav Tafel Kribbelezer, either Rav Tafel holds like the view of Rav Lezer that one who starts his achila beheta you can carry on eating, so it allows you to gather the eshkol in the courtyard, although you're joining it, because basically the first one you can eat beheta, you see. Or it could be the reason of Rav Tafel is Avad, he treats uksas eichel kitzchilosai, the end of the eating like the beginning. So the eating of the end of the bunch and its beginning is like one fruit. And that's why he allows you to gather the whole thing without taking Masechet, because one fruit is not siruf. Rabbi Ila, Rabbi Isip, Rabbi Yochanan. He says you can explain the reason of Tafel in one of two ways. Rav Tafel Kribbelezer. Maybe Rav Tafel holds like Rav Lezer. You start the heta, you can finish eating. Or maybe Rav Tafel is Avad, Achila, Shesh, Proshtayim, Shalosh Achilas, a food and eating where there's two or three eatings, kachil achas. Maybe he eats two and three like one. So even though there's a lot of eating, it's considered like one fruit and there's no tziruf at all. Okay? Basically, what's the difference between these two opinions? Because Quinchub Ze'ira, let's say Rav Tafel treats the end of the eating like the beginning, even if it'll be massive, it's considered as one eating. Quinchub Ila, he considers Eshkol, which has got two or three eatings like one. So that's an eshkol, a cluster which has got two or three eatings, he considers it as one. But he doesn't go further than that. If it's really massive, 5 or 6 eatings, he wouldn't say that, you see. So then that would be the difference between the two opinions. Now the Gemara brought the view of Rabbi Eliezer in Trumas. So if you start eating in the garden, you go into the courtyard, you can carry on eating. And the Mishnah says the same thing if you start eating the grapes of Shabbos. And then the sun sets and Shabbos comes in, you can carry on eating without taking Masechet. Now, what's the reason of Rabbi Lezer? My time of Rabbi Lezer that you can carry on eating without taking Masechet. You started eating in a permitted way outside the courtyard, and therefore he allows you to finish off eating. And the Gemara brings a price which explains Rabbi Lezer slightly differently. Amr Nasan, Laisha Rabbi Lezer, not that he holds you can finish the whole cluster in the courtyard, not because you started beheta. And if Rabbi Lezer Shabbos, you know what? Rabbi Lezer says you got to wait till Shabbos finishes. Well, you go back out of the courtyard, and there Yigmar, and there you finish your eating. So basically, he's saying now, no, Shabbos comes in, you got to stop. Yeah, after Shabbos you carry on eating, but for Shabbos you got to stop. So that's a courtyard where they're breaking down the ground. They're sort of hoeing the ground. Yeah, is that how you understand it? They're sort of removing the title of a courtyard. Harei is like a garden with no mass obligation. Therefore, you can eat ara in it. The halacha is like Nechemia. Tani, now we've got another brisa, another way where a chotzer has no mass obligation. Tani, we learned in a brisa. Zara ruba. If you sow the majority of a courtyard with Zraim, you've taken away the name of the courtyard. So Petura, it has no master obligations. Nataruba, if you planted trees in the majority of it, Chayeves, it is Kabbalah Maser. Rechista, that which the Brisa said you planted it mainly trees, it's still a courtyard. Who, providing Shanata, you planted them, Lanaya Shalchatza, to beautify the courtyard. Right, rows, nice rows, you're beautifying the courtyard, nice to sit there. But if you did trees just scattered, then it's no big deal, therefore it's not called a courtyard anymore. Now this brisa, the last brisa, which talk about majority sowing most of the trees, Hadar Yafa Minahi, is learned from a brisa which talks about a courtyard where they work the ground. He, on the earlier brisa, Yafa Minadar learns from this brisa. So let's see. Hadar Yafa Minahi. This brisa learns from the previous one, that the brisa said, Zora Ruba, if you sow the majority of the courtyard Patura, then it's potter from Maisa. That is Vehish Nederes. That is providing the ground is broken down before you sow it. Yeah? You've got to turn over the ground beforehand, and that way the seeds will properly set in the ground. Vahiyah from Inadar, and the earlier brisa learns from this brisa, when the brisa is Mohesa Nederes, if it was being uprooted, the courtyard, She Kasada, that is potter like a field, that's providing Lushazara Ruba, providing you sow the majority of the courtyard. So each brisa complements the other one. Sowing or hoeing the ground alone are not enough. You need both. You need hoeing the ground and you need sowing, that's the other majority, and that reduces the obligation to take Masa. Now we said in our Mishnah, if you've got a fig tree in the courtyard and the branches are bending into the garden, you can eat normally and you don't have to take Masa. But the other way around, when the tree is in the garden and the branches are in the courtyard, you are Chayav. That which we said, if the branches are in the garden, you can eat normally, you them two together, providing, so then he's potter from taking Masa. That is, but I made beginning, you're standing in the garden, yeah? If you're standing in the courtyard, unless you've got a long stick, but you're standing in the courtyard, you have to take Masa if you put two together. And also, that which we said, if the branch is going into the courtyard, and you're outside, one by one, potter, you don't have to take Masa. In Syria, if you put two together, Chayev, you're liable. That's only by Omed B'chotzev, where you're standing in the courtyard. If you're standing in the garden, even if you take from the branch over the courtyard, you can put two together, you're still potter. So he holds if you're standing outside, you are still potter.
Normally I thought putting two together is a form of completion.
Yeah, but here you're standing in an area where it's probably not Gemar Malacha yet. It's like it's in the garden. You're going to see one by one. Let's see what he says. In Tziref Chaim, if you're standing in the garden, it's not reached the Gemar Malacha yet. Yeah. If you're just taking from the branch, you can put them together your pot. So he says in the notes, you're standing in the garden, they've not yet got Kvias for Maaseh, even if they're growing on the branch which is over the courtyard. Then he asks here, surely, when you gather them from the branch in the airspace of the courtyard, you're taking them through the courtyard. That should be as if you brought them through the entrance of the courtyard, according to those opinions. He says, well, you're not really involved in taking them into the courtyard, you're taking them outside the courtyard. So that's not called taking into the courtyard, which brings upon with it a master obligation. Rav Yirmiyah by Rav Zira, he asked before Rav Zira, he said, these dinim, Haisani Teres B'dukni. If let's say you could take the fig from the tree with like a stick, when you're in a certain other domain, if they were so big or they were growing on a branch in the garden, they're not kaver for masa, even if you are, let's say, standing in the courtyard. And if they were growing on the branch in the courtyard, then they're kaver for masa, even if you're standing in the garden. So basically it's following the fig and not following where you are. That's what he's saying here. Dama, we have a story. Rav Zira, Rav Bargana, Rav Levi, have a Yosef, they were sitting together. Rav Zira, Makanta didn't Agata. Rav Zira was annoying. I mean, you don't find people annoying people in Yerushalmi, but here he is. He's annoying those learning Agadata. Now, basically, they're darshaning psukim of their own accord, which they did not have a tradition for. And he was not happy with it. But Tzalach and he screamed at them, Sifrei Kismei, like, you I don't know, dodgy scholars, some of them, like all magician stuff sort of thing. Amalei Rabbi Bar Kahana, he said to him, Lama Mekhatalon, why are you upset with them? Sha'al, ask a question in the psukim, and I'm giving Lach, they'll answer you. Amalei said, Ma'adei Dersiv. So it says in Tehillim 76, Ki Chamas Adam Tadaka. The anger is according to the person that he causes, anger on a person causes him to praise you. She'erit chemotachka. And the rest of the anger you hold back. So what is the anger which causes him to praise you? What does it mean the rest of it you hold back? Amalei. So Rabbi answered, Ki chamas adam tzedakah, when a person pleases or thanks Hashem for the punishments which He brings upon him because of his anger, in this world, then she'erit chemadaka, then the rest of the anger which is remaining, because the sins is not yet punished, you hold back to l'olam haba. You don't punish him all your anger in this world, you'll hold back some for the next world. So Rav Zira said, I don't like this shot. And Amalei, he says, I don't think this shot is right. Amalei, Rav Zira said, maybe you could say the other way around. Maybe it's the other way around. Ki chamas adam tzedakah, a person will praise Hashem in the next world, on the pains that He brought him in this world. And she'erit chemadaka, therefore, according to the way that you deal with the rest of his anger, to bring upon him his anger, to punish him on his sins, in this world, so he'll be complete for the next world. So the drasha that you said is not clear. You could dash in the pasuk exactly the opposite. Rav Levi said, this is what it says. When you bring your anger on the wicked to punish them, the righteous see what you do to the wicked, the tzaddikim praise you. So the anger you bring on the wicked causes the tzaddikim will praise you. And then it says, so therefore you guard yourself with the rest of your anger to bring on the wicked, and when you bring it upon them, the tzaddikim come and praise you. Zira said, you know what? You could throw it this way or that way. We don't really get anything from it. Therefore, you learning in Agada, Azal Tzor Tuknisach, you know what? Guard your stick. Like the Din Halacha you're discussing about getting figs for a stick. That's better to learn. That discussion is more important than Agalata for the sake of it is not important. Right? He's saying here, when you're learning Divrei Torah which is relevant Lemasa, then you should go into it. You'll reach a maskana. Right? Okay. We said in the Mishnah that if you have a tree planted in a city which is surrounded by a wall, then if the stump is within the wall, the branches are outside, everything depends on the stump, the trunk. And the branches are considered within the wall. Now, Bati Arechoma applies not only on houses, but also the trees growing in a city surrounded by a wall. Taman Tanina, in Erechin, in Babylon lands, Kal Shulifnim and Achoma, any type of building which is within the walls of the city, has got a din like the walled city, and you can redeem it within a year. After that, it's too late. Except for the fields, even within the wall, the din doesn't apply. Remember, he said even the fields within the wall have got a din like Bati Arechoma. My Torah, what's the source of the Torah for the Chachamim that applies to all sorts of things apart from fields? So the Torah says with Bati Arechoma, the house will be, let's be, so after a year it stays within forever. Only it's all very well bias. I understand about a house. How do I not include Bati Badin, like oil presses, or boros and water cisterns, shichin, which is various pits, and ma'aros and caverns, or mechatzais and bathhouses, shavachos and dovcots, and migdalos and other towers or whatever. They have Bati Arechoma Tamalavos, where it says Asher Ba'ir, anything in the town, even though it's not a place of living. Maybe add the fields. Maybe like a house. A place of living. Exclude fields. They are not a place of living. What's the source of the Torah that applies even fields have the din of Bati Arechoma? It says in the Torah, the house will go. It's all very well in a base. How about adding the olive presses, the various wells and cisterns, and bathhouses, shavachos and dovcots, and migdalos and towers? So he says he includes even in fields as well. Anything in the town, right? It's got a din like Bati Arechoma, even a field, even a tree, they're within the town. Right, so when we say it in our Mishnah that a tree in the city has got a din of Bati Arechoma, that's like the view of Rameir. Now we bring the Torah about Bati Arechoma, which has a wall, as opposed to a house built where part of the wall of the house is the wall of the city, right? So that, like you find with in Tanakh, who lived at the edge of the city in a wall in his house in the city. Any offers? Yeah, maybe the two spies which Yeshua sent. Yeah, with Rachav. To exclude a house which is built where the wall of the house is the wall of the city. So then the house is the wall, the outer wall is the outside of the house. It doesn't apply to Din Abata Yerushalmi. Rav Shimon says even it does. Because the outer wall is its wall. So the house is within the wall. Now the Torah says Ashaloi Chayma. Now you know, the way it's written, it's got written Lamed Vav. According to the Maasrot, it's written, it's 1 second, which way round? It's written Loi Lamed Aleph, but the Maasrot is Ashaloi, that it has, Lamed Vav. Rabbi Yehuda Darash, he learned, based on the Maasrot of the way you read it, Ashaloi Chayma with Lamed Vav. So it tells you that a house is treated like Bati Arachayma if it's surrounded by walls, which are not just the walls of the house. To exclude a house in the walled city at the edge of the city, it's not surrounded. With Shimon Darash, he learned Ashaloi Chayma, we're only excluding a house not surrounded at all. But if it's within the wall, even if the wall is the same wall, it's included at Baisa Shema'eh Ashaloi Chayma. Now, as far as the cities of refuge is concerned, so everything depends after the branches. So he's telling you also the Ori Miklat, right? The branches don't follow the trunk. Everything depends on the branches. It's got its own name if the murderer is there or not. And the same thing, with the stump, the trunk, everything follows the trunk. That's also kaveya. To a tree, let's say in the town, the branches are going outside. The trunk will help a murderer. The branches are also independent, and they also, like a tree which is outside the ear, they will not help a murderer. This did that when the branches are outside the town, the murderer can't rest there, although the main trunk of the tree is within the town. That is in the case Sha'ala, where he went on the branches, Derech HaNoif. Basically, he was outside the town and climbed up the branches. If he went into the town and climbed up from the trunk, right, then, although now he's on the branches outside, but he was already caught for a period of time with the trunk, and therefore he's not allowed to be killed. Now, with Masa Sheni, the din is everything follows the knife, even L'chumra. So we don't just look at the tree where the trunk is, we also look at the branches L'achmir. So fruit of Masa Sheni is in part of the tree outside Yerushalmi, you can't redeem it, right, because of the other part which is in the town. And even Masa Sheni, which is in a part within Yerushalmi, you can't eat it there because of the other bit which is connected, which is outside the town. So the Gemara now is going to compare our Mishnah to the Mishnah Masa Sheni. Talks about Botei Bad, various olive presses where they keep the oil there, built within the walls of Yerushalayim. And it talks about Botei Bad where they're open, Lifnim and Achayma, and they have gaps, they have voids, because the tunnels, they have tunnels leading outside the wall. Or you might have caverns within the wall, but the entrance to them is outside the wall. So it's like our Mishnah with the tree, where part of it is within the wall, part of it is outside. And Beis Shammai agreed to our Mishnah. The verse says our Mishnah is even like the Beis Shammai Masnisa, our Mishnah, that everything follows the branches, L'chumra, is the Beis Shammai, is like the view of Beis Shammai. The Beis Shammai Beis Shammai say with a cavern, a Beis Habad, where the opening is within the wall, and the cabin space is outside, Kol Kalifnim. Everything follows within the wall, L'chumra. So it's considered L'chumra based on both places. So you can't eat Masa Sheni there because there's bits outside. And you can't redeem Masa Sheni because you might be inside. So the Mishnah also judges a tree which is planted in one place and the branches going elsewhere based on the two places, L'chumra. And that has to be like the view of Beis Shammai. Tali we learned in the Brisa. The tree where the stump is in Yerushalayim and the branches are outside, if you pull the branches, now they're going outside, but you pull them back in, the whole tree is like within the walls of Yerushalayim. You cannot redeem Masa Sheni there. But if, however, you don't bring the branches back, you left them outside, then the branch is treated like outside Yerushalayim, and you can be paid a Masa Sheni on it, even though the trunk of the tree is within the town. And one thing's clear, this price is like the view of Beis Hillel, who hold that every part of the tree is based on where it is found. Now, from this price, there is still a support to Beis Shammai. Actually, there is in this price another Tanakama. They're arguing that this din they held like a Beis Shammai. They treat the tree like as if it's both places l'chumra. So even a tree where the branches are going outside Yerushalayim, is l'chumra, is treated as if it's within the city, and you cannot be paid any fruit of Masechet which is found on the branches. Okay. Perek Revi, yeah? Okay. Now, once you've finished the work with the fruit, it's mutter to eat achilas arai until you have a kaviyas for maaseh by taking it into the house. And what about other dinim that kaveh maaseh? HaKovesh, one who pickles vegetables, whatever, in wine or vinegar, HaSholek, he cooks them a little. HaMoleach, he salts the fruit, so it should stay a while. Even though he did it basadeh, he did it in the field, he's not actually brought the fruit into his home, Chayev, right? He is Chayev Maaseh. HaMechamer, now this is one who digs and leaves fruit in the ground, Ba'adoma. Patel, he's Patel from Maaseh when you eat it. HaMetabel Basadeh, you have fruit in the field, you just eat it at temporary eating. Patel from Maaseh. HaPotzeh Azesim, you smash open olives, Sheyesim Mehenasaraf, for the moisture to come out, and you eat it arai. Patel from Maaseh. Masechet Zeisim Abasarei, you squeeze olives on your flesh to anoint yourself with the oil. Patel, you patel from Maaseh. Msachar Benasa Metach Yodai, if you squeeze them and you put the oil into your hand, Chayev, you have to take Maaseh. Havakapel Tafshil, if you remove the pips from the wine, from the grapes, after you've poured the wine into a dish, Patel, you don't have to take Maaseh. The Ligdera, if you're removing these sediments after you've poured the wine into an empty vessel, Chayev, you have to take Maaseh b'nei shehu, because this pot is considered like a boyer cotton, like a small pit, as if the wine's gone into a boyer, which is the gemar malacha of the wine. So if you're using, so this is the tavshil, if you put it into a food, you're potter from Maaseh. But if you're removing it and pouring it into an empty vessel, then you have to take Maaseh. Okay? HaKovesh HaSholek HaMoleach. So all these things you do in the field, you're chayev. But Tovel. Now if you cook something in fire, that creates a tevel status. Mekach, if you sold it, Tovel creates tevel. Melach, if you salted it, Toveles, creates a master obligation. Truma Toveles, if you separate Truma, that creates a master obligation. Shabbos Toveles, if Shabbos comes in. Chasa Beis of Shmira, or a guarded courtyard, Toveles also creates a master obligation. The Amar of Yochanan, he says, Mekach v'Shabbos v'Chaseh, the courtyard of transaction in Shabbos, especially the other things as well. Ein on Torah, they are not a chiyuv of Maaseh midin Torah, it's only a rabbinical thing. Rav Avi Shem Rav Shmuel Lakish HaMachor v'Shaveh, we've seen this phrase before. The most clear-cut case of where the Maaseh obligation is Chasei Beis Shmira, if you brought the fruit into a guarded courtyard. Right, that's Kaver Medin Torah. It's not like the other things which are only Kaver Midrabanan. HaKovesh, one who pickles the fruits or vegetables, can you eat them until you finish the whole pickling? Or maybe the Kaver for Paris, for Maaseh, straight away as soon as you start the process. And HaSholek, you cook these fruits or vegetables. Can you eat them you have to wait till they're fully cooked, or maybe the Kaver Paris as soon as you start the cooking process. We learn from the following. So what's this? Sort of singeing them. Is that what they say there? Sort of singeing these ears of corn, whatever they are, in the fire. Mitzvulu, they become tevel. Now these things, are they not lacking malacha through fire that they should be prepared to eat? I mean, even after you've singed them, they're still not ready to eat. You need to do a proper cooking. And yet, the Brisa tells you, since you started preparation, then they become tevel. So we see from here the same thing. Any time that you start cooking or pickling, the parents are kaver straight away from Maaseh, even though you've not finished the bishul. The answer Shani, this din is different, the singeing is different. This is the final work of a person by preparing the wheat for eating. He wants to eat the wheat straight after singeing. He doesn't want to cook it, he doesn't want to bake it. You understand? But in that case that we were talking about where we had a doubt is when he didn't want to eat it until it's completely cooked, completely pickled. So it could be other fruits are not tebel until you actually finish the cooking or the pickling. Now this answer is based on an assumption that even though usually wheat is not eaten through singeing, but when you want to eat it straight after singeing, then you are considered the Gemara Malacha, they're considered complete for eating. The Gemara brings a proof for this. Where do we see this then? Harakate shibalin. You cut off, you detach these ears of corn and you bring into the house. La'achlam belilais, to peel them and to eat the pips as they are. Nitzvelu, they became tebel the first time they went in the house. Now even so, usually, there's no Gemara Malacha only after threshing. Here, you don't want to do, what are you doing here? You just want to eat it as it is. So it's considered Gemara Malacha. Therefore it's Kaveh Masechet through bringing it into the house. But if you brought the Blasais on Isa, if you want to make a dough out of it, then it's not Gemara Malacha until you make a dough and the smoothing and everything. Line it below. So then, they're not tebel yet. Bringing it into the house is not Kaveh, it's not Gemara Malacha. So even though usually Malacha, it's not usually you need Maruach, right? You're piling up everything. If you want to eat it Melilos, these earlier stage is considered Gemara Malacha because they are still Shibalim. So the same thing in our case, even though usually they're not ready for eating the Shibalim unless you cook it or bake it. If you want to eat them through sort of singeing, then that's the preparation, that's the final preparation for you to eat it. Okay? Kavash v'shalak. Oh, kavash v'shalak. Shalem das banim. If you pickled fruit or cooked it and it wasn't yours. You did it with someone else's fruit. They didn't know about it. So if you looked at it, if you've got an argument, this palgan, if you pile up your friend's stack without telling him, Rabbi Yochanan said nitzbal. It's now tebel, you can't eat it arai. He says no, it's not tebel. Our review to the said tamar. Now we can't necessarily equate them. Tamar with pickling, he doesn't have to pickle his fruits. So even if Yochanan agree, if someone else did it, they're not tebel. But it could be he doesn't have any intention to do that. Rabbi Yochanan never said the tzvur is tebel shlomi dos manim, only with miruach. That's a normal process that you have to do. Now we learnt in the beginning of the Masechet, things which Gemara Malacha b'shus hakodesh, shus hekdesh are not chai b'maaseh. Now about a case where, when the fruit was b'shus hekdesh, one of the jobs which is kaveh l'maaseh took place while this fruit was in hekdesh domain, and then after that it got redeemed. And let's see, something else was added. Let's see, shlakah b'shus hekdesh. If you cooked it while it was in hekdesh domain. The Badai, then you redeem it. You bring it into a guarded courtyard. Now what's the din? Is it a kaveh l'maaseh or not? Adated Rish Lakish, according to Rish Lakish. Because bringing it into a guarded courtyard fixes a master obligation. Nitzvah. This fruit is susceptible for maaseh. Zu, because bringing the fruit into the guarded courtyard is Torah, is a Torah din. The zu, the cooking, which is done beforehand, b'shus hekdesh, ain't a Torah. That's not a din Torah. It's only rabbinical.
What? Still Halacha.
Which one?
Cooking.
Cooking, but it's only Drabanan. It's not like a Torah din. What's that? Yeah? It's not a Torah din. The Torah din, B'chumash u'B'kulan, right? So let's see this again, is the courtyard. So Datu de Shlakish Nitzval, and the fruit is Tovel needs Maaseh, because Zu, to a garden, a fixed garden, we're saying, according to our opinion, that is the Torah. When he said B'chumash u'B'kulan. Zu Torah. The Zu, but the other one is Eino din Torah, it's not Torah, only Drabanan din. Since it's not Roy to have Maaseh, only Drabanan, it does not stop the fruits from having an obligation by Achnos and Achotzer, which is Minat Torah. Whereas according to Rabbi Yochanan, bringing it into Chos Mishtameres is still not Minat Torah. Okay? I'm just saying some of the notes here. It comes out basically the cooking done with the Paris and Shus Hekdesh is the same as bringing it into a courtyard, which is done with Paris after redemption. It doesn't create title status. Okay, another question. If you bring it into a guarded courtyard, and then Padaya Shloka, then you redeemed it and cooked it. Ma was the din. So in this situation, Divra Kol Nitzvah, everyone agrees the fruit is Chaim Ma'aser through cooking, and it doesn't remove, let's say to a Chatzeh, Mishus Hekdesh will not stop this Chiyuv, because Chimaz Asa Ma'aser. He said, look, what did this person do for the fruit, Mishus Hekdesh? Let's see something happened to it while it was being Hekdesh. But basically, bring it into a garden courtyard, it's not Ma'aser the Guf of Paris, it stops the fruit after being redeemed from becoming tevel. So he says, Higdisha Shloka, if you made the fruit Hekdesh and then you cooked it a bit, and then you brought it, you put it back into the courtyard, the garden courtyard. Padaya, redeemed it, Shloka, and you cooked it. Ma'u, what's the din? Right, so he says here, an action on a change of a fruit can stop the status of tevel if it's done b'shus hekdesh. Bringing fruit into a courtyard of hekdesh doesn't make a change in the fruit themselves, so it does not stop the shem tevel from coming about through an action that can be done afterwards. Okay, so what have we got here? So it means the chasbei shmira, and then b'doy of shlaka. Now was the din? Then we say divra kol nitzvah. We say here as well, it's tevel, the fruit is tevel, was the gemara, the shlika of the cooking was b'shus hediyot. Or maybe, yeah, that's that question. No, actually that's an answer, sorry. Divra kol nitzvah. That the fruit is tevel, yeah. Next question. And what happens if you cook grapes while they're still in hekdesh domain, and then you redeem them, and then you shrivel them into raisins, the simkai. And then you made raisins. Then you go and do one of the things which is kabbalah masa. Ma was the din. Is it part of from masa through cooking, which is done b'shus hekdesh? But we say, look, it's ready. It's already at the time of bishul. You had das. So you want to make raisins. So there's no gemar malacha here through this cooking. You're just making it into raisins. Therefore, this bishul. So which way around is it? Let's say it again. You cooked while it was hekdesh. Then you redeem it and you make it into raisins. And then you do something which could create a master obligation again. So is it part of from master through the cooking which was done b'shus hekdesh? Or do you say, look, at the time of cooking you're going to already make great raisins out of it. There's no gemar malacha through that cooking. Right? The gemar malacha is through making the raisins. So if it will not exempt you from master. So in Tay we're going to tell me ha'or tovel, the fire has an effect, even though it's not gemar malacha. The din is ha'or, the fire which was hekdesh paiter. That will exempt from maser. Any action which is done, if it would be done b'shus hediyot, it would cause a chiyuv maser. When it's done b'shus hekdesh, it causes a ptur. Then we're going to tell me eino or tevel. The fire doesn't create a tevel status. It's something not complete. So it comes out, had you cooked it b'shus hediyot, it wouldn't chiyuv maser. Therefore, eino or the cooking which is now done b'shus hekdesh is not going to poter, is not going to exempt you from maser. So a very good question. We have no answer. Rabbi Yirmiyah asked, Tignai, if you fry a fruit in oil when it's still in the field, Basoda, Ma was the din. Is it like bishul which causes maser? But loikach, and wait a minute, without you frying it, Eino Tevel isn't frying enough to create Tevel. The Tevel, bishul. So there's no difference between frying, it's like cooking. He says, if you could fry the fruit without putting oil with it. So in this question, then the question starts. I mean, it could be that fire is not kaveya in a situation where there's no liquid there, right? But since you can't fry it except through a liquid, then it must be that frying causes a chiyuv master obligation, and the question doesn't stop. Rabbi Yoda, Tanya of Tachlata ben Shol, Asa Hesed Basada. If you leaned, you sat down to eat fruit in the field, Tovel, you have to separate maser. The sitting down together is considered a kviz. Lai hesiv, if you didn't lean in a Tovel, it doesn't create maser obligation. Ein hu hesav shuhu Tovel. What is the situation of leaning which creates Tovel? Kol hesav shesh ba yayin. You're also drinking wine in the meal. Otherwise, it's not achilas keva. Katsav lehesiv. You set aside your mind to lean. Sit down. But in the end you didn't. Does it have a name Tebel on the fruit? Because they were brought to eat Siddas Keva? Well, since at the end of the day it never happened, therefore there was never any chiyuv of the fruits of Maaseh, therefore you can just carry on eating outright. Very good question. We have no answer. Tali related to the price, Hashum, Bashachalai, Bahachaldo, Shashachkan Basode. What is this? This cress, garlic and mustard. And you grind them in the field in a vessel with oil. Nitzbalu. They now have a Maaseh obligation, even though they're not coming to the house. This grinding is their Gemar finishing preparation. That is all very well with Shum Shel Tebel. That is all very well with Shum Shel Tebel. That is garlic, which is not Maaseh. Shashachka, you ground it into a vessel where there was Shemen Shel Chulin. So basically, Maaseh has already been taken, and the garlic is fixed for Maaseh through the grinding, because that's the way we prepare it. What about Shum Shel Chulin? What about garlic of Chulin? Yeah? Garlic of Chulin, Shashaka, you ground it in a vessel which had Shemen Shel Tebel, oil of Tebel, which is not Maaseh. Are we going to tell me that as far as the oil is considered, the grinding is a very important hachana, preparation, to create a kviyas Maaseh for it or not? The Gemara doesn't actually answer the question. Rav Zira Rashi B'Shemab, Eshkol Shesachta Lekas, you take a crust of grapes which you squeeze into a vessel to drink. Nitzval, they have Maaseh obligation. The place is like a little pit, like a well, and the wine falls in, but if the eshkol is the tamchoy, it was squeezed for a dish, lo nitzval, then that does not create tebel. This action is a schitas arai, it's for the sake of the food, it's not considered Gemar Malacha. Okay? Hamekapele tavshil, so you're removing the pips and things from the wine. After you pour the wine in the dish. Parto, you don't have to take Maaseh on the wine. Because this sort of removing these pips and things is just derech harai. Now, but whatever happens, ain't no table, but the fire will create table status. The cooking is one of the 6 things that creates a Maaseh obligation. So why will wine not have a Maaseh obligation? Because you poured it into the hot food. So Tifto, we talk about a case where it was poured with tafshut sainin in a cold food. So it doesn't cook the wine, and therefore the wine can be drunk, sarai. Now, if you poured the wine, after you poured it, you sort of lekadera, so you sort of floated the wine, I don't know, maybe you hardened it, what was we saying? You poured the wine in a kadera, chayev, you have to take Maaseh. I don't know, you managed to get the wine out somehow. Yeah, what do they say there? Hikvas a yain. After you've poured in the kadera, you sort of floated it up. Chayev, you have to take Maaseh. Okay.
Is it like a respectable thing, maybe?
What do you mean?
Pouring the wine into Kedera.
There's
only way Chaim is it's Gemar Malacha.
Yeah, it is, yeah. You're sort of, you poured the wine in Kedera, but then you've sort of taken it out, hikva. Sort of removed it somehow. Now, the Gemara explains now, what's the difference between this case and the earlier case? Pouring it into a food, pouring it on Rabbi Lazar. The Kedera Kadis Masnisa. Different from the earlier case. Here's the way you're pouring the wine in an empty vessel with no food. So that's considered a kviyas for Maaseh. Masnisa, now which kviyas have you got? We're going to say Masnisa Amroke. We're going to say the Mishnah says this because the Mishnah says on the kapel, the tavshil, you're sort of filtering wine into a tavshil is potter, you don't have to take Maaseh. The gedera, to an empty vessel, chayev. Neishul kabo katan, it's like it's going into a little vat. The reason why pouring into gedera chayev, an empty vessel, because the vessel is considered like a little well, a little pit, and therefore it's talking about an empty vessel. Because if it had a tavshil, it wouldn't be like an empty well. There's a boy who is raped in Boshun Tavshil. The usual pit is something empty. Okay? Fine. How are we doing? No, I think we will stop here today.